Humans ruled the planet. We crossed oceans, built skyscrapers taller than mountains imagined by our ancestors, and created civilizations so complex that millions of strangers can cooperate without ever meeting each other. We built cities that never sleep, economies that move trillions of dollars every single day, and nations powerful enough to shape the lives of billions of people across the world. And yet, according to Yuval Noah Harari, most of what holds this entire system together isn't actually really in a physical sense. Money, borders, corporations, human rights, nations, they only exist because large group of people collectively believe they exist. In many ways, modern civilization is built on shared imaginations. This is the central argument of Sapiens, a brief history of humankind, a book that attempts to explain how one species of ape managed to dominate an entire planet. Harari argues that humans did not become dominant because we were the fastest, strongest, or most physical capable species. What made humans different was our unusual ability to create stories and convince millions of other humans to believe in them together. Religion allowed ancestors to unite under common belief. Money allowed people to trust each other economically. Nations created identities larger than tribes and families. These systems are not physical objects like rivers or mountains. They survive because the people continue believing in them. Then came the agricultural revolution, which Harari provocatively describes as the biggest fraud in history. Humans settled down, worked longer hours, relied heavily on a huge few crops, and became more vulnerable to diseases and hierarchy. According to Harari, humans did not domesticate wheat, wheat domesticated humans. And finally came the scientific revolution, the moment the humans began transforming ignorance to power. Science allowed humanity to understand nature, manipulate biology, and eventually reshape the planet itself. But this is also where Harari's argument becomes both fascinating and controversial. One of Harari's strongest ideas is that human civilization runs on imagined realities. And honestly, he isn't entirely wrong. Money has no intrinsic value. ₹1,000 note is ultimately just paper, and digital money is nothing more than the numbers stored inside computers. And yet, entire societies rise, collapse, fight wars, and believe future around these symbols. But this is also where I think Harari oversimplifies the issue. Calling these systems just fictions ignores how deeply they shape real human lives. People work exhausting jobs, struggle to survive, and sometimes even die because of economic situations that technically exist only in collective imagination. So maybe the real question is not whether these systems are real, but whether collective belief itself becomes a form of reality. Harari also describes agriculture as a mistake, and to some extent, this argument makes sense. Early farmers often had worse diets, harder lives, and less freedom compared to hunter gatherers. But there is a major problem with calling agriculture a failure. Without agriculture, there would be no cities, no universities, no modern medicine, no internet, no science, and probably no civilization capable of producing a book like Sapiens itself. Agriculture may have reduced comfort, but it massively expanded possibilities. So perhaps agriculture was not a mistake. Perhaps it was humanity's first massive trade off. We sacrifice simplicity for complexity, mobility for stability, freedom for progress. Harari also raises another uncomfortable question. Are humans actually happier today than we were thousands of years ago? And honestly, nobody really knows. We cannot measure happiness across history with scientific precision. We imagine hunter gatherers living peaceful and meaningful lives, but the imagination itself may simply be another modern myth, another story we tell ourselves about the past. And this leads to the biggest
Human
paradox
rights do
in
not
the
exist
entire
in
book.
nature.
You cannot
Humans
touch
became
them
the
like
most
rocks
powerful
or
species
trees,
on earth by
and yet
collectively
these
believing
are
in things
invisible
that do
ideas
not physically
control
exist.
governments,
Money
economies,
does not exist
border,
in nature.
relationships, and sometimes the fate of millions of people. That is a strange guess or genius of humanity. We turned imagination into infrastructure. So, if something imaginary can organize entire civilization, influence human behavior, and shape the course of history, can we still dismiss it as a merely imaginary? And maybe that is where Harari is most convincing. Not necessarily in every conclusion he makes, but in forcing us to question the invisible systems we normally accept without thinking. Because humans do not simply live in reality, we live in stories. And perhaps the future of humanity depends on which story we continue choosing to believe.